Hello and welcome. I'm Zoltan. In this video, we will dive deeper into the power of Copilot and start with actual coding. We will craft a tiny application with Java on the backend, JavaScript on the frontend, and all anchored on SpringBoot. As a software metric enthusiast, I've chosen a domain I'm deeply passionate about, so we are going to craft an app just to visualize agile metrics. This will be a longer video, as we are going to code together step by step the entire application. I will even overuse Copilot from time to time just to showcase the different methods and different principles, how we could use it and how we could interact with it. Being said that, let's get into that. Let's get started. Alright, so step 0. Let's create together the Spring Boot skeleton for our application. I will use the Spring initializer from the command palette. So let's create a new Maven project. Spring Boot version. I will use the Java programming language. Let's modify a bit the group ID. Artifact ID, we could call it metrics demo. And we will package it as var with Java 17, let's say, version, and let's generate it into my development folder. Let's open it up and we can see nicely that the main Java classes were generated. So we have the application and the servlet initializer, and let's quickly take a look and verify whether the server starts up. Yes, my server is running. So, as I mentioned, we will code the end-to-end application together. Java on the backend, JavaScript on the front end. What is the most important thing for us now to validate and create? Let's create our first controller, what we will call metrics controller, and it will be a Java file. So here we are. Visual Studio created for us just a little skeleton of the class, and now it's time to start to dig deeper. Oh, as you can see, Copilot is already giving us some suggestions, which is not bad. As you remember, there are two different ways to interact with Copilot. First, we start to code and Copilot will give us some suggestions, contextual suggestions, and the second is from meaningful comments. Actually, there is a third way. If you remember well, we touched upon the Copilot X. So let's use now the Copilot X and let's try to create the REST controller with the help of the Copilot. So you need to find the Copilot Labs icon. Let's click the Copilot and let's open up the menu. Find the brushes. There are a couple of different brushes we are not going to talk and dig deeper into, but we are going to create a first custom brush, or better said, we are going to use the custom brush for our first prompt to make this class a REST controller. How we can do that? It's an interface like ChatGPT, so we could nicely ask GitHub Copilot that could you please make this a REST controller? And let's see what will happen. Copilot is working, and it generated us, it's a little mess, but it's not bad. Actually, if we delete the last piece, then it looks like a REST controller. It's empty. So what is the easiest way to test out this REST controller? The easiest way is just to create our first method, which will map to the default request mapping. Copilot is giving us some suggestions, but it's not exactly I would like to see. So let's open the custom brush, and I prepared the prompt in advance just to not waste so much type with writing. So let's do custom brush. So I created a prompt. Create a new Java method that maps the default request and returns the hello world with use of the get mapping. So let's try it out, what will happen. Actually, I think my cursor was placed in the wrong place when I asked for a prompt. But in general, the suggestion is working nicely. This is what I wanted to have. So now it's time to test it out. Our server is up and running. And here we are, hello world. After we are done with our controller, it's time to work on the next layer of the application, which will be the data model. So let's create a new file, metrics model. And here we are. Let's take a look what Copilot is suggesting to us. To properties name and value. This is not exactly what I want. I would like to have an integer ID, and I would like to have a string. Let's put sprint name, and some real world agile metrics. So for example, let's have it. Let's make it integer velocity. And let's make another one, story points. We will call it rather throughput, but it's literally the same thing. And integer bucks. Let's go with the bucks. Okay. So after we are done, okay, let's have a constructor, and let's take a look whether it could generate for us all the getters we need. Public string get sprint name, get velocity, get throughput, and what was the last? Get bucks. Okay, are we done? What is probably the toString? Yes, good. So we should have our data model in place now. So in order to work with the data model, we will need to have a DAO or a database layer. We will create a new file and we call it metrics DAO.java data access object. So our metrics DAO is created, and now let's start to put the puzzle pieces together. We will make the metrics DAO as a Spring repository. And let's take a look what Copilot is suggesting us. Copilot is suggesting us here a couple of helper methods, but I'm not gonna use them. I'm going to use a JDBC template. Inject the JDBC template. Outward, yes, private JDBC template. Yes, exactly what I need, with the only difference that I want to use this, so I will uncomment it quickly, organize the imports. As the first thing, yes, we will need an insert method, but before we insert data, we need to create a database, as we will use H2 database. So create table metrics if not exist. Okay, and let's take a look to Copilot. So we can see if we write meaningful comments, GitHub Copilot is able to pick up the comments and generate for us almost the complete solution. I just noticed that there is a little problem with the database column. How we called it, it was a sprint name, isn't it? We had sprint name, velocity, throughput, bucks. Okay, sprint name, velocity. We had throughput, and bucks. good, and we should be fine. Next, yes, we are going to insert a new row into the table, but rather I will prepare the database with, let's say, 5 random elements. So create 5 random items. Let's give it a context, metric items in the database or in the table. Yes, and let's take a look what Copilot suggests us. Yes, Copilot suggests us almost a perfect solution. So for our demonstration purposes, it's more than good. And we will need a method exactly for getting all the metrics. So let's take a look what Copilot suggests us. JDBC template, new metrics. It's not exactly what I want, but it's something we can certainly use, with the only problem that it was called metrics model, and that should be it. And now we are really just few steps from putting all the puzzle pieces together and running the application on our server. What we need to do now is adding the application properties for H2 support. Who remembers all the properties? Hopefully GitHub Copilot. So create a custom or enter a custom brush, add H2 database properties. Most probably this is the correct one, but we will test it later on. And now we will need to create the table, and we will need to fill the data. So let's go to the application now, and we will need to have a command line runner. But first thing first, we need to have the DAO, not a logger, but our DAO metrics DAO object here available. Exactly. Hopefully, yes, nicely picked up for me. Copilot suggestion was almost perfect here, and now I'm very curious whether it will be able to pick up for me the metric service. Not really. Public command line runner, so far so good. Yes, exactly, this is what I need, but the methods are not correct. So it was a metrics DAO and create table, and we had a metrics DAO. I admit the naming convention what we used is not the best, but that should be it. And now we are really just one step from running the application. So let's update the metrics controller and create a new mapping method. Get mapping, let's have it this way. Metrics. We don't need a string here. We want to have here the DAO object. Outward, exactly. We don't have a metrics service, so this context was not the metrics DAO object. Metrics DAO, that's it. Let's clean up the, and now we just update metrics DAO get metrics. It's not a string, it's a list of metrics model matrix model here. It's a Java hotel list. And what's the okay. So yes, I didn't spot this small issue when Copilot generated me the code. So it will be a list of matrix models we import, and let's just delete the whole line, and let's take a look whether GitHub Copilot will be able to get all metrics and return them as list. Return okay. Let's take a look now. Throughput bugs, that should be it. So we have the controller which returns the matrix model list, get request. We have the DAO where the table should be created and the element should be added. Matrix model, servlet initializer. So the breaking moment. Let's take a look. Let's shut down our let's shut down our server and just let's start it up. Okay, seems that the server is running, and now let's take a look. Hello world, but we would like to have the API and we call it metrics. And now this is exactly what we wanted to achieve with our backend. So now, being said that, let's put together a very lightweight and easy frontend which we read our controller and JSON data, formats it nicely into a table, and displays even a chart, a line chart. And now the things are going to be pretty exciting because we are just going to finish with our lightweight UI. So let's get into that very quickly. Into the resources static, let's create the index.html file quickly. Previously we were using Copilot with Java. Now we are going to test it out how smart it is with HTML, whether it's able to help us with the head. SpringBoot secret example login, not really context specific, so we will call it metrics. Or even I would like to use Bootstrap to prettify a little bit my HTML. So let me please just do the imports, not really imports, the links manually. So let me copy the head here. And let now use the body, or let now fill the body. We saw that GitHub Copilot is already suggesting us few things there, but we would like to have, not really, I would like to have a black bootstrap navigation bar. So let's try, let's do it in this way. Let's create a small div with ID app. For now, let's close it off, not close the body. However, let's create a Bootstrap navigation bar and let's ask Copilot. I'm very curious whether it's able to create for us black Bootstrap navigation bar. Ta-da! Almost complete. So what we need to do here, we need to close this off. We need to close the div as well. Yes, we close the div and we close the navigation bar. Below the navigation bar, Bootstrap container, no, we will call it main content for simplicity, and the main content will be our database our HTML table. However, to create the HTML table, I will use again Copilot, or at least I will try to use Copilot. And we had ID, sprint name, velocity, throughput, and bugs. So five columns. So create me a table for listing the metrics with 5 columns, and the header should be ID, sprint name, velocity, throughput, and bugs. And now let's try what Copilot will be able to generate us, if it will be able. Okay. Throughput, velocity, sprint name. That's good. This is something we are not gonna need here. And let's take a look. Div. So let's close the last div, and let's close our body as well. I believe this should be it for the HTML, and now it's time to create the very lightweight JavaScript, which just retrieves the JSON from our controller. After HTML table is ready, the last missing piece is to create the JavaScript, how we call the JavaScript app.js. So let's go ahead and create an app.js file. And as we did with the HTML, that we let Copilot generate the content for us, we will hope that Copilot will generate for us the JavaScript as well. Retrieve JSON data from the server. Yes, but what server, localhost? It's not able to pick up that. We call it the API metrics and displays it in the table. Great. We don't really want to use this command, so let's keep it. Is table window unload. And what Copilot will generate now for us? Fetch. Now it was able nicely to pick up the name of our API metrics. Previously in the command it was not able, because there was an employee endpoint, I think, if I remember it well. So yes, that's almost correct. Response, is it yes, it's able nicely to data. Okay, so we will clean it up a little bit. How we called our table let's take a look. We did not call it, so let's call it metrics table. Let's copy over the ID. Metrics table tbody. Exactly. So where we are, we have no 4 data for each metric. What we are going to do, we will create a row, document, row, document, create element dr. That's what we want to do. Row. Oops, it was a good suggestion, I guess. So hope, yes, it's able to give me once again. And now let's delete this one from here. Yes, we would like to metric name, oops, 1 2 3 4, it was just 4, so let me create the one more, and we had metric ID, we had sprint name, velocity, throughput, and it was, what was the last box? Yes. So is it able to close off for us nicely everything? And now let's take a quick look, and I guess we could even try this out now. Let's fire up our server, browser, and open the HTML file. And here we are. Our table is nicely filled with data. So the last missing piece, if we would like to have, we could have a nice chart.js. As a part of our application. So let me just manually create the chart here. It maps to metrics, sprint name, velocity, and let's take a look whether the HTML file will be able to understand that we would like to have a line chart. So line chart from chart.js, and we call it line chart. Good. A metrics chart was better, so I will use rather days. And now we could go and just test it out, our masterpiece, whether it's working correctly. So just to be sure, it's not needed, but restart our server. Come on. Okay. And let's go to the browser and fire up our index.html file. And now I'm very curious where we are. And here we are. So we see nicely the database, the HTML table is populated from the backend, and based on the velocity and sprint names, we populated also the line chart. It was a long but exciting coding journey. I'm truly amazed how GitHub Copilot was able to assist us during the coding process. In fact, the significant portion of the application was generated by Copilot itself. Not all the suggestions were always perfect in every context, but as its name suggests, it's a Copilot, not autopilot. If you provide enough context and correct, meaningful prompts in various scenarios, what it can do is truly a magic. Being said that, it was a long and exhausting video, so thank you very much for sticking with me till the end. Thank you for watching and have a great day.